All right, welcome back. Now we are going to talk about rules and policies for Royal Family Kids Club. Hooray! So, just before we get into them, a helpful way, I think, to start is just by posing the question of how do you think the rules change between club and camp? How does the way that we practice the rules of camp change at club? How might the place, the duration, and the people change during club? What are some of the differences? Well, let's see. We're going to be at a church instead of a campground. We're going to be with a smaller group of adults instead of it's not going to be 80 adults or 60 adults. It's going to be, 20 or 30 maybe. And again, a smaller number of kids too. Let's see. How do the rules change since we're just doing sort of 3 hours on a Saturday morning instead of 5 days at an overnight camp? Just basically observing and being aware of some of these differences, I think, is a helpful starting place to framing out how the rules work at club. But anyways, let's see if we can get through these pretty quick. I know this is probably anyway, let's get through them. 7 religious practices. So again, these are things, just a refresher for you. We've got to remind you this stuff we can't do at club. Not going to do communion, no water baptism, no altar calls, no laying on of hands, no casting out of demons, no speaking in tongues, no anointing with oil. Guess what? That stuff is the same at club as camp. All right, we're not going to be doing any of that stuff. So what can we do? Well, the big thing is question evangelism. So in other words, when children ask questions about God or about their lives or about sort of their struggles or whatever, we can respond about faith or in faith. So we are definitely able to, you see down here, answer child's questions about faith honestly, talking about our own faith or ways that God has helped us or ministered to us or whatever. We can talk about that. We're totally fine to talk about that. In fact, I hope you do talk about that with these kids. We can pray for them. We can pray with them. Again, going to refrain from speaking in tongues, but we can still do prayer. We can read them the Bible, and we certainly will. We're going to be doing Bible stories every single month. And again, I put this down here just to remind you, ultimately we're trusting God for the impact. Again, God's provided us with these kids. He's laid it on your heart to minister here. We're going to trust God ultimately to do what he wants to do and wills to do with these kids. Just like at camp, we're going to be looking out for teachable moments. Remember, moments matter. So whether that's when they're filling out their activity books, doing activity centers, singing songs, reading the Bible, or perhaps most likely, I guess what you'd see the most sort of teachable moments come either at the breakfast, where we're just all sitting down and chatting, or in the clubhouse time, which is, again, similar, kind of sitting down as a small group and chatting or just playing or doing whatever. Again, we'll talk a little more about that when we do the sort of club overview video. So again, just look out for that about clubhouses. But anyways, let's keep going with the rules. Let's see. 2 deep rule at mentoring club events. Again, same as camp. No child should be alone with one adult ever. So that means not down the hall around the corner by yourself with the kid. Not, in one of the Sunday school rooms alone with a kid. Just nowhere should you be alone with a child. That even includes the bathroom. If you need to take a kid to the bathroom, you better have 2 of them. And another thing too is we talked about this at training, and it's a little hard to describe here without seeing it, but the way that we're going to do it is that the kids are going to be instructed to use the upstairs bathroom by the fellowship hall, and the adults are going to use either the bathrooms that are down the hall past the kids' ministries and around the corner, kind of by the RFK office, or on the first floor right by the stairs to go up to the fellowship hall. So the kids are going to use the second floor bathrooms by the fellowship hall. Adults can use first floor sort of on the first floor right under those bathrooms, or down the hall around the corner. That way we don't even have to worry about a kid going into a bathroom or maybe a volunteer taking a kid to the bathroom and not realizing there's an adult in there that they might inadvertently be violating the 2 deep rule with. So anyway, Pretty simple stuff here, guys. 2 deep rule, just pretty self-explanatory. Don't be alone with a kid. Open door policy, no mentor or mentoring club volunteer should ever be alone behind a closed door. Again, so just re-emphasizing, we're going to leave the doors open. I think the only time I could even possibly foresee closing the doors, and I don't even think we would do it then, would be during the clubhouse time, similar to like in the bunk rooms. You might close the doors at when it's bedtime or something like that. But again, generally, open door, better safe than sorry. Just err on the side of caution. Safe touch, same rules as camp. We're not going to do piggyback rides. We're not going to do frontal carrying. We're not going to do, oh yeah, they really emphasize this on the slides. No lap sitting ever. But yeah, no, not going to lap sit. No sitting on laps. Safe side hugs only. Photography policy. So basically this, again, pretty self-explanatory. There's going to be a designated photographer, maybe 2, who are able to photograph us while we're at club. For the rest of us, we're not going to be doing any pictures on our phone. Same with the kids. We don't want them taking pictures either. The photographer, the designated photographer, and again, you'll know who that is, they may be taking pictures with their phone, maybe with a camera. Either way, they will be the only ones. So that's the important thing that we want to emphasize. Just like at camp, no exchanging personal contact information. So we're not going to exchange social media, emails, phone numbers, addresses, just none of that stuff. We want to keep our relationships kind of restricted to the mentoring club time. Social media and cell phone rules, no social networking, limit cell phones. Again, we really ideally, when you get to club, the cell phone kind of stays in the pocket unless you need it for something related to club, like maybe you're looking up songs or something like that. I don't know, referring to the curriculum possibly on your phone, something like that. But really, we want phones to stay out of sight when we're at club, just like at camp. And we're going to tell kids the same thing, because we'll have inevitably some kids who show up with cell phones, and that's fine, but they just need to stay out of sight at club. So, and again, just kind of reemphasizing no social media stuff. Yep, so we tell them the same thing. Name tags, you'll get a name tag when you show up at club, so you need to wear that while you're there, similar to camp. Hugs, we can ask permission, safe side hugs, again, common sense here. Child protection plan. Just got to review this. This is stuff I hate covering this, but we have to talk about it. Predators or a person tempted by pedophilia is not an if, but a when. And thinking that it can't or won't happen is exactly how it does happen. When it says not an if, but a when, I don't think that, yeah. The reality is there are hundreds of Royal Family Kids chapters across the country. I think maybe around 200. I'm not quite sure. Each of those chapters have anywhere from 30 volunteers up to over 100 volunteers. So you can kind of do the math and start realizing that across the entire Royal Family Kids organization, there's quite possibly tens of thousands of volunteers, and repeat that over 30 plus years. That's why they can say it's not an if, but a when. Just running the numbers on what percentage of the population, even though it's a very small percentage of the population, has this pedophilia or predatory inclination. The reality is that we have enough numbers that we're going to hit that. We're going to have some of those people, inevitably. So the whole purpose of the Child Protection Plan, and it was developed, I believe, by Kanakuk after they had issues with some of this stuff, is that while I and RFK leadership, our job is to try and make sure that only safe people are able to even get through the doors to camp, nonetheless, we realize that we can be fooled and that we don't know a person's heart based on an interview or based on a background check. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that camp and club are so safe and so protected that even if there were a person who had a predatory desire, that they actually would not be able to do anything that they shouldn't be doing. And so we had, and that has been the case so far. And Royal Family Kids is really, really good about this. They are very, very, they emphasize safety in a big way, even before Kanakuk had problems. And in fact, at national training, I remember one of the national office people talking about how they had actually been able to follow up with a rural family kids volunteer who was later convicted of something sex offender related, and asked them, did you do anything at our camp? And they said, no, I wasn't able to. There was no opportunity. And so that's how it should be. That's how it should be at club. It's how it should be at camp. It should be that even if there were somehow a person in our midst who had an evil desire, that they would not be able to do anything unsafe. So that's what this child protection plan is all about. It's unpleasant to talk about or think about, and yet it's necessary because we care about the safety of these kids. So let's just briefly review this. This is going to be familiar from camp. We've talked about it at camp, but again, we want to rehash it here. So first, 3 T's: talk, touch, and territory. And basically, these are where the boundaries lie. We want appropriate talk, appropriate touch, and appropriate territory occupancy. So talk to each other and talk to kids in an appropriate way. Touch each other and kids in an appropriate way, which means, again, safe side hugs only. It's not that you have to be scared to have any physical touch with these kids. It's normal to have some physical touch. You're playing a game, maybe a pat on the back, a side hug, something like that. That's fine, but we just want to make sure it's appropriate. Same with territory. We're staying in our own space at camp. This is a big deal. We talk about, absolutely no sitting on each other's beds. Well, we don't have to worry about that at club. But again, we still just want to be respectful of each other's space. 3 R's: recognize, resist, and report. So these are basically what you do if you observe any amount of inappropriateness going on. First, you recognize that it is inappropriate. Second, you resist. You do something about it in the moment. You stop it from happening, if at all possible. And then third, you report it. That means you report it to me, and we will have to do some sort of mandated reporter thing together if that becomes an issue. But the point is you do need to report it. And then the 3 W's supervision is kind of out of order. I think it's better to do 3 T's then 3 W's. But this is sort of, I think of this as how you can judge if something's appropriate or inappropriate that you're observing. And so you can ask yourself who, where, and what. So who am I looking at here? Is this the right people? Is that an adult that I recognize? Is that a kid that I recognize who is supposed to be here at club? Where are they? Are they going to the right place? If you see somebody walking down the hall towards the sanctuary, or an adult and a couple kids walking down around the corner away from the group, well, obviously, again, that's a pretty obvious example, but the point is we want to make sure that people are in the right place where they're supposed to be. And then what are they doing? Are they doing what the activity is, or are they doing something else? And altogether, these things are the child protection plan, and they comprise the 360 supervision, which is 3 rules, 6 boundaries, and 0 tolerance. So the 3 rules are the recognize, resist, and report. The 6 boundaries are we want appropriate touch, appropriate talk, appropriate territory, right people, doing the right things, in the right place, and we all work together to make sure that we create a comprehensive safety net for adults and kids while we're at club. Before we finish this section, just briefly, I want to talk about this. Very interesting research that I had learned about a couple years ago, and so I'm a little fuzzy on the exact details, but I'll try and share it as best I can. Basically, they did a study where they had a group of people observe something happening that was a bad thing happening, or they polled people who had been present for some sort of offense, and they looked at who reported it and who witnessed it and who neither reported nor witnessed it. And what they found is that 48% of people who could have witnessed this crime, this offense taking place, 48% of people witnessed it. So half the people didn't even notice, but half the people noticed. But then of those, only 26% intervened. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that a whole bunch of people witnessed something really bad happening and didn't intervene, didn't do anything about it. And when they, and this is the part that really stuck out to me, this is the takeaway that I wanted to get from this. When they asked the people who witnessed something improper but didn't intervene, why didn't you do anything? Their answer almost universally was, I didn't think it was my job. It's kind of similar, the way I think about it is like, you're told if you ever observe somebody having a heart attack and you're in a crowded subway or in a crowded city or wherever, you're supposed to call out, somebody call 911, because otherwise everybody just sits there. They don't think it's their job. So what I'm here to tell you is that it is your job to intervene in any circumstance. This is true not just here at Club, but especially at Club. I recognize that there's an opportunity cost to intervening. There's an opportunity cost to reporting somebody. And what I mean by that is that you're putting yourself at risk a little bit. If you think that you saw a fellow volunteer doing something that they shouldn't be doing, there's a little bit of a hesitation there that you don't want to call them out. And that's a natural thing, to be fearful of conflict, to be fearful of saying something, accusing somebody falsely, like, hey, maybe they're not doing what I thought they were doing. Surely there's a good explanation for what I'm seeing. And what I'm telling you is that I don't care who it is, whether it's leadership or a brand new volunteer that this is their first time being here. I don't care who it is. If you see something improper, you must report it. And here's the thing. If, say for example, it were me that you were reporting, but I really didn't do anything wrong, well, my attitude about that is going to be, I'm happy that you still reported me falsely, because what I want more than anything, more than I want to avoid the awkwardness of being falsely accused of something that I didn't do or whatever, comes with that. More than that, I want the kids to be safe, and I want to exercise extreme caution with them. And so, again, if we're all on the same page, we all want a safe environment, well, we don't really have to worry about the fallout of if we, say something, accuse someone of something that they didn't do. Because we're all going to be able to recognize, well, that's in the interest of the kids to be extra careful. On the flip side, we absolutely have a zero tolerance policy for anything improper. So anyway, I just want to emphasize with this child protection plan that it is your job as a volunteer to participate in it and to uphold it. So, okay, guys, girls, that does it. That finishes this video. In the next one, we're going to do just a brief overview, sort of a run through of what you can expect from a typical mentoring club. So I'll see you in the next video.